The rock world has recently been shaken, not by a loss, but by a moment of deep reflection surrounding Brad Arnold, the unmistakable voice behind 3 Doors Down. Online headlines and emotional reactions reminded fans just how strongly his music is woven into their lives. For many, it felt like waking up to the possibility of losing a piece of their youth, even though Brad himself continues his journey with courage and resilience. Moments like this force us to slow down and appreciate artists while they are still here, breathing meaning into the songs that shaped us. Brad's story isn't one of endings, but of awareness, gratitude, and perspective. It's a reminder that behind every anthem is a human being, facing life with the same uncertainty as everyone else. This isn't just about music, it's about acknowledging impact, presence, and the power of connection before it's too late. The voice that defined a generation. If you grew up in the late 1990s or early 2000s, Brad Arnold's voice was unavoidable. Even if you didn't know his name, you knew the sound, that gritty, emotional delivery that made 3 Doors Down stand out from the crowd. They weren't just another rock band on the radio. They became the soundtrack to road trips, breakups, late-night thoughts, and quiet moments of reflection. Brad sang in a way that felt personal, never distant or polished beyond recognition. His voice carried vulnerability without weakness, and strength without arrogance. That balance made listeners feel understood. It's why the band connected so deeply with everyday people. Brad didn't sing at his audience, he sang with them. That shared emotional space is what turned casual listeners into lifelong fans and cemented his place in rock history. Facing illness with honesty and strength. In May 2025, Brad Arnold made a public announcement that instantly shifted how fans viewed him, not as a rock star, but as a man facing a serious battle. He revealed that he had been diagnosed with advanced kidney cancer that had spread, news that would understandably shake anyone to their core. What stood out wasn't just the diagnosis, but how Brad chose to handle it. He didn't disappear or retreat into silence. Instead, he spoke openly, acknowledging fear while also expressing resolve. By sharing his reality, he allowed fans to stand beside him emotionally, creating a space rooted in honesty rather than sympathy alone. That openness transformed concern into connection. Brad showed that strength doesn't always mean pretending to be unbreakable. Sometimes it means being real enough to let others see your fight. Choosing grace over fear. Imagine being in your mid-40s with a family you love and a career built over decades, suddenly forced to confront your own mortality. That is the reality Brad Arnold faced, and yet he approached it with remarkable grace. Rather than allowing fear to define him, he chose dignity, faith, and perspective. He continued to express gratitude for his life, his supporters, and the music that gave his journey meaning. This mindset resonated deeply with fans who were facing struggles of their own. Brad's response wasn't about pretending everything was fine. It was about choosing how to move forward despite uncertainty. That quiet courage became just as powerful as any lyric he ever wrote. In facing his challenges publicly, Brad offered something rare, a reminder that resilience can be calm, grounded, and deeply human. Small-town beginnings in Mississippi. To truly understand Brad Arnold's impact, you have to go back to Escatawpa, Mississippi, where it all began. In the mid-1990s, Brad was just a teenager with a love for music and a belief that something more was possible. Alongside friends Matt Roberts and Todd Harrell, he formed 3 Doors Down, initially juggling both singing and drumming duties. They weren't chasing fame, they were chasing expression. Playing small venues and local shows, they built their sound the hard way, through repetition and persistence. There was nothing glamorous about those early years, but there was authenticity. Brad's roots remained visible in his songwriting, grounded, relatable, and free of pretense. That small-town foundation would later become one of the band's greatest strengths, proving that sincerity travels farther than hype. A song written in math class. One of the most remarkable chapters of Brad Arnold's story is also one of the simplest. At just 15 years old, sitting in a high school math class, he wrote the lyrics to Kryptonite. At an age when most teenagers are just figuring themselves out, Brad was unknowingly crafting a song that would define an era. Kryptonite wasn't flashy or complex, it was honest. It explored vulnerability, self-doubt, and the fear of letting others down. When it was finally released years later, it exploded, dominating rock radio and embedding itself into pop culture. The song's success wasn't just about timing, it was about truth. It resonated because it sounded like something real people felt. That early spark of authenticity became the blueprint for everything Brad would create afterward. From breakthrough to staying power. When The Better Life dropped in 2000, Three Doors Down went from regional buzz to global recognition almost overnight. The album's success wasn't a fluke. It was the result of years of groundwork, finally meeting opportunity. Songs like Loser and Duck and Run proved the band had depth beyond a single hit. Then came Away from the Sun, which revealed an even more emotional side of Brad's songwriting. Tracks like When I'm Gone and Here Without You became deeply personal anthems for listeners navigating distance, loss, and longing. These songs weren't just popular, they were lived in. Brad's voice carried emotion without exaggeration, allowing people to place their own stories inside the music. That emotional staying power is why the band remained relevant long after trends shifted. Music that became people's memories, beyond sales numbers and chart positions, Brad Arnold's true legacy lives in the memories people associate with his songs. Three Doors Down wasn't background noise, their music marked moments. First kisses, long separations, military deployments, graduations, and personal losses were all accompanied by Brad's voice. Songs like Here Without You and It's Not My Time became emotional anchors during difficult chapters of life. That kind of connection can't be manufactured. It comes from honesty and emotional risk. Brad never tried to sound untouchable. He sounded human. That's why listeners trusted him. His music didn't just entertain, it comforted. It reminded people they weren't alone in what they were feeling. That ability to provide solace through sound is one of the most powerful gifts an artist can give. Commitment beyond the stage. Brad Arnold's influence extended well beyond recording studios and concert stages. He and Three Doors Down consistently showed up for causes that mattered, particularly supporting military members, veterans, and first responders. Through benefit concerts and overseas performances, Brad used his platform to give back. Understanding that music could be a bridge between hardship and hope. This commitment wasn't about recognition, it was about respect. He recognized the emotional weight music carries, especially for those far from home or facing extreme stress. That awareness shaped how fans viewed him, not just as a performer, but as someone grounded in gratitude and responsibility. Brad's actions reinforced the idea that success carries meaning when it's shared. His legacy includes not only songs, but moments of unity, comfort, and appreciation offered to those who needed it most. Appreciating the legacy while it lives. Moments of fear and reflection often remind us to appreciate artists while they're still here. Brad Arnold's journey has encouraged fans to revisit the music, not with sadness, but with gratitude. His voice remains strong, his catalog timeless, and his influence undeniable. Every time Kryptonite or Here Without You plays, it reconnects listeners to who they were and what they felt. That is the mark of lasting art. Brad's story is not defined by illness, but by resilience, honesty, and connection. He showed that creating something meaningful doesn't require perfection, only sincerity. As fans continue to share memories and songs, the message is clear. Appreciate the moments, honor the music, and never take presents for granted. Brad Arnold's legacy is alive, not just in sound, but in the lives he continues to touch.